Hello, dear perceptive souls. This is Bevan Neiman, and I am a compassionate guide for intuitive empaths, light workers, and conscious leaders. And welcome to your intuitive business career development reading. This is particularly for those of you who are interested in or have already launched your holistic spiritual wellness business and are just thinking, okay, in this day and time, in this age, how do I make that work? How do I actually get myself out there? How do I get visibility? How do I attract in those clients who are right for me and I'm right for them, and I can lend my expertise to help them heal or help them move forward in their life? So what I do is I go into a deep meditative state and I pull in this collective energy. As a spiritual entrepreneur, I feel you. I've been in this journey for at least 4 years. 3 years before that, just volunteering and leading classes and learning and growing, and then 4 years of formal business. And along the way, I've learned a lot about that. And so I hope that this is helpful for you. I am also the co-founder of 1millionempaths.com, which is an online global sanctuary for those who are deep thinkers with huge hearts that want to make a difference in our world. And it's a place to come in and connect with like-minded souls and make personal and professional connections and learn more about yourself, and just have a sanctuary space where you can refill your tanks before you go back out there and you serve in whatever way you're doing that. So let's tap into the energy today. This is really a journey, right? It describes my journey. It describes the journey of like so many clients that I've seen. And I think that you'll probably recognize this. And I love the spectrum and the path that it takes us on today. So when we first begin to think, maybe I would like to leave my corporate job, maybe I would like to do something different, maybe you've always been called to be a holistic practitioner, and you begin to study, right? So we come into this card of knowledge, right? Reading books and watching videos and taking courses and mentoring with people and seeking out a base of knowledge that you feel and you know that you need to have before you begin serving. And this is a beautiful time. I had some amazing mentors in my life, some amazing teachers who helped me along the path, opened my mind, expanded my understanding, and then my own curiosity led me to research and go down the rabbit hole, if you will, on so many different topics. And I realized that not only this particular research and this particular study in metaphysics and spirituality and meditative practices and conscious leadership, but also every other thing I've ever learned in any job, and even the things that I learned as a child, were actually leading up to this point. So if you think back, you have been preparing for this for a very, very long time. And, you know, it's very common for us to think, well, maybe I just need to take one more class, or I need to find one more person to mentor and coach me, or I need to read one more thing or take one more course. And that's true. We want to be lifelong learners, but there can also be a point where we get to becoming the student and never really stepping into being the teacher, right? And there's that moment where you just take a deep breath and you're like, okay, I don't know if I'm completely ready, but I'm going to venture out there. I'm going to do this, right? And when you begin to think about that, I love this card. It's so interesting and abstract, but so incredibly important as a message, right? So here we are in the beginning, like maybe you're right here, you're just like this little tiny sprout coming out of the ground, and you look over the hill and you see all of these different options, right? Some of them look really big. It's like, wow, I could reach a lot of people. I could serve a lot of people. And these lights kind of remind me in the United States of the Hollywood sign, or those big lights where they're like, hey, come here, do this, you know? So there's all this, you know, sort of glitz and glamour, and there are people telling you, well, you can make $10,000 a month, and lots of stuff going on out there, right? And so this is can be kind of a confusing time. It's very energetic, you know, it has all the warm colors, the reds, the oranges, the yellows, and there's lots of choices here, and you're really not sure, like, where do I root myself, and who do I want to serve, and how do I want that to look, and am I going to do one-to-one programs? Am I going to do group classes? Am I going to write a book? Am I going to do a podcast? Like, what's the venue? What's the opportunity here for me? And this can be a place of overwhelm. And so what I say is just like start with one thing. Start with one thing. So when I did this early on, the first thing I started with was a meetup group. And at that time, obviously, we were able to meet in person. But I just opened up this meetup group for highly sensitive and empathic people. I invited them into my home, and I led a 1-hour workshop. And I just kind of grew my own understanding of myself as a teacher, as a leader, as a practitioner from there. Then the next thing I did was I started writing a blog, and I found that I loved writing, and I did that. And then I expanded that out into group programs, and then I expanded that out into videos, and I expanded that out into being on summits and podcasts. So it's a building process, right? You only have to start with just this one piece. Like right now, in this moment, if you're thinking about beginning and launching something, what is one thing that lights you up? What's one simple, easy way that you can start to explore who you are, what you believe in, and what your message is for others? And when you do that, I love this card. The giveaway card comes in, right? And this is where we just freely express. We just freely give. When I first started my meetup group, I didn't charge people. I just said, come on in. Let's come for the workshops. People brought food. We had like a little, pitch-in kind of thing. And we did this collectively. And then, I took donations to buy, paper and ink and so forth to do the handouts. And I started very simply, and I just began to express. And when I started my blog, I just began to express. I began to reflect on the things that were coming up for me that were happening in my own life as a sensitive, empathic, intuitive person, the realizations, and people started to resonate with me, right? You start to see that as you just let that go, you put that out there, right? And it can feel kind of scary at first to put that out there. But as you start to put that out there, there are like these different, this light that gets created, this generation, you're starting to shine. And all of these people go, interesting. That's interesting. That really resonates with me. I started to have people comment on my videos and on my blog, and I started to have people who wanted to come and come into my group programs. And you only have to just start with that one little thing, and then just begin to give, right? Just begin to give. Just begin. If you're an artist, you just begin. You paint, you draw, you construct, you build. If you are a yogi, you move your own body and you learn how your body reacts. And then maybe you ask a friend or a colleague or a family member, would you like to do this with me? And you learn. You begin to just give this part of yourself, right? Not to the point, and I want to make this very clear because we are just such passionate givers, not to the point that you become depleted, because you can see she is not depleted. She is energized. So you can tell the difference. If you are giving and giving and giving and giving, and you start to feel like, oh man, I can't do this anymore. You've given too much, right? We also are meant to receive. We're also meant to receive. But in the beginning, this is a lot of what you do. And in the beginning, you're really not even trying to sell anything to anyone. You're just putting your message out there. You're just expressing who you are. You're just learning what your voice and what message you have to give. It's a beautiful time. It's a very low pressure time when you just get to play and experiment. I will probably always experiment in my business, but the first 3 years, I tried some of this and I tried some of that, and I collaborated and I wrote ebooks, and I just tried all kinds of things. I was like, I don't know what I like to do. I don't know what really lights me up. And this is a part of not only finding out what lights someone else up, what brings them in and what attracts them to you, but also what lights you up, because those are that intersection there of where people have a need, right? They have a need, they have a spiritual question, they have a question about healing their body, they have a question about healing their relationship, whatever that is. And then you have this passionate place, and this is where you begin to come together. And so that brings us to this next card, which is, okay, there's these vibrations, right? So one of these vibrations is you've been out there, you're speaking out your message, you're starting to talk about it, and you can start to feel these group of people who are resonating with that coming closer, right? Coming closer. But it still feels like there's this barrier here. You're like, oh, well, how come we're not connecting quite yet? How come we're not, how come I'm not attracting enough clients, or whatever, whatever that thought process is in your mind. And really it is that intersection. This beautiful cup here, this like red cup in the center is that offering that matches the vibration of the people you're trying to serve with the vibration that you have to give, right? And we only learn that by experimenting. We only learn that by watching and observing. And as sensitive, perceptive people, we're great at that. We look at trends. You can go out there, and this is where things like market research comes in wonderfully. I've done some surveys, and put those out even through, social media ads. And, like, are you an intuitive empath? Like, what is that like for you? What is your experience? And I learn, and I allow them to tell me like what's happening. And I'm like, oh yeah, that also resonates with me. And this is where we find the cup, the common ground in between those two things. Some of the things are pointing down, and some of those things are going to be specific to your clients, and some of those things are going to be specific to you. We have these cups on the outside, but this cup in the middle is where you meet, right? Where you get your cup filled and they get their cup filled, right? That's the common ground. And you begin to bring those resonances together over time. And this requires, this is the Four of Cups. So it's, it's great that we're talking about cups here. And this is an interesting card because you can see that he is open and vulnerable, right? He is showing himself. He's showing his crown. He's showing all of his finery. He's showing, but he doesn't have a mask. He's not hiding any part of himself. And this requires this service as a spiritual teacher, as a holistic practitioner. It requires us to show ourselves. And you can see that he's looking in the mirror. So he's seeing, okay, here's who I am. Here's how I'm showing up to be. Am I showing up authentically? Am I being vulnerable? And then a part of that is also looking out into the audience, looking out and seeing, what's happening there. And you could flip that mirror back and forth, right? Front and back, front and back. It's me, it's them. It's what's reflected in me is reflected out in the collective. What's reflected in something that's happening in a client's life is often reflecting what's happening in my life. And when I have coaching sessions with clients, or I do group programs, it's so interesting when people bring things up, because I'm like, oh, wow, that was so interesting. I think that message was for me as well. So it becomes this reciprocal exchange. And the Four is a place of stability. So we start to build stability in our business. We start to focus. We did a lot of experimenting before. We tried this, we tried that, we wrote a blog, we did a podcast, we made a website, we did all these things. We started partnering with other people. We started to hone our message, right? Started to sense that vibration where my vibration and the other person's vibration are coming together, and there's an offering there that meets everyone's needs. And now we begin to create some structure, because the Four is really about structure and building a foundation for your business and for your work in the world. And this requires a lot of self-reflection. I say that other than my personal relationships, nothing has taught me more about who I am than being an entrepreneur. Everything comes up, your personal worth, your relationship to money, your ability to allow yourself to be visible and do things like this, which is get on, and how comfortable are you with that? It brings up all these things. And so if you embrace that process, if you embrace your spiritual business as your own spiritual practice on a daily basis, where your work doesn't really become work. It becomes sacred play. It becomes something like, I get to do this. I mean, every morning I wake up and I think, wow, I get to coach people. I get to be in this beautiful online global community with all these other empaths and light workers and conscious leaders, and I get to communicate with them and engage them in these beautiful online discussions. And I get to do this. I get to write blogs, and I get to write ebooks, and I get to make courses. Like, hell yeah, this is the life that I want, and it just lights me up. And so this is this self-reflection piece, and then beginning to really focus in on just a few key elements where you're seeing that people are more responsive. Where are people coming to you from? Okay, maybe I need to go there more often. And I'll just put these other things aside. Doesn't mean I can't do it. Doesn't mean I can't continue to blog, or I can't continue to make videos, or I can't continue to do this. But these places seem to be a point of attraction, and you start to build this foundation, because over time, if you just continuously experiment, there is no stability, right? There is no stability, and that stability includes financial stability, because you are meant to be nurtured in all ways by this work that you're doing. And as you put that stability in place, here we revisit the cup, right? And now the cup is overflowing. It is outflowing. And really, like, one side is you, and one side is the people that you're serving. And there's this beautiful connection in the middle. It's like you're mirroring each other. You're responding. You're bringing your richness and your tapestry and everything that you have, your personality. And here's all your clients and the collective, and you're watching and you're looking at all those patterns, and then you're matching, like, what is needed, what skills, what experience, what expertise, all those ways that in the beginning and continuously you were gathering knowledge, and you continue to gather knowledge, like market research and reading and considering new ideas. It never stops. It's a part of your growth and your personal development and your professional development that you begin to mirror. And when you begin to mirror, everything gets lined up, right? Everything gets lined up. It gets lined up within you, in your energy system, and it gets lined up. You bring this in, and your cup is literally overflowing. Like, you're like, there's an infinite capacity. Now, that doesn't mean that you work all the time. It doesn't mean that you don't go and walk in nature, because you see the nature here. It doesn't mean that you don't take your downtime. It doesn't mean you have to be on call. This idea of hustle culture, I kind of bought into that for a bit as an entrepreneur, and it just doesn't work. So for example, in the morning, I get up and I have about 2 hours from the time that I awaken to allow my body and my mind and my spirit just to, like, wake up and get into the day. And I do readings like this, and I drum, and I go walk in the forest, and I drink a nice cup of hot tea, and I sit with my cat, and I get myself into a space where I'm ready to serve. So this is that alignment on both sides, that everything is balanced, right? Everything is balanced. And then I love this final card that we come into. Over time, and they say, like, it takes about 10,000 hours to become a master at anything. So regardless of what you're doing, whether you're writing or speaking or teaching or healing, or helping people, really embody this physical vessel as a spiritual connection, it's going to take a while to become a master of that. But eventually you come into the Mystical Shaman. And it's gorgeous, gorgeous card. You see all of this activation from the crown up. It's a visionary. It's a person that's able to look out, right? And this person is also receiving, right? So in the beginning, we were doing a lot of giving. And that's okay. And I would continue to give. I mean, that's what these readings are here, is my way of expressing and giving back and helping others. But the Mystical Shaman is a wise one, right? So once they've done this work, to make this connection, to see what their true value is in the world and how they can serve, and they're willing to be adaptable and shift and mirror what's happening right now, you know. They become very confident in their ability to tap into their own knowing, to become a manifester, a creator, to help other people become manifestors and creators. I want to take a moment, and this is from the Mystical Shaman Oracle Guidebook, which is just absolutely gorgeous. Like, everything in this is amazing. And I wanted to tell you a little bit about the invitation of the Mystical Shaman. When this card appears, you're invited to consider the ability to live without attachment. You are called to create and dream your life, to act on inspiration and divine impulse without fixating on a known story of success or achievement. And so what I'll say is, like, in the beginning, we have these ideas, right, about what achievement. We see those Hollywood lights in the back. We see this big, giant opportunity. You're like, maybe I want that. Maybe I want that. And as you travel this path, and as you serve more people, and as you come into your own and you begin to see, you realize there's a lot of attachment there. And when I let go of that attachment, and when I just do what is being asked for, and I don't mean that you don't need to make good business decisions, being a business person, understanding how to manage your finances, understanding when to partner, when to not, when to take opportunities. But it's about coming into that mystical part of yourself, that wise one that understands when to do that and when to not. Can you impartially observe the stories that you tell yourself and others? What if you could become a mystery to yourself? Who would you become if you stopped telling the tales that had defined you up until now? You do not have to live in a story that has roots in the past. What if there was no need to explain you to anyone, not even to yourself? The way to your most extraordinary life is to become a blank slate and allow the form of your dreams and desires to show up as it will. This is a sign of manifesting a life beyond your wildest dreams. So this is a great example. As I've embodied that mystical shaman part of myself in the beginning of my life, and even in the early stages of my business, I wanted to set goals. I wanted to have a spreadsheet. I wanted to have everything defined. I wanted to say, here's how it's going to happen. And what I've learned is that I am a powerful manifester. So many things that I desired, many things that I worked towards, did come to fruition. And then there were like a whole bunch of things that didn't. And I kept thinking to myself, okay, so what does that mean? You know, why do I set all these goals and like nothing happens? And I thought, well, what happens if I just um, give that away? What happens if this is not just giving away and being generous and loving and kind and coming on and doing these kind of readings and blogging and doing these things? What if this is giving away a particular identity that I needed to have of myself, and a particular path that I think that needed to take? And what if I just worked on being in alignment? What if I just worked on being in the magic of what emerges? So many things have showed up in my life that I did not expect. I got an email to invite me to do something. I connected with a person seemingly randomly, and it led to a collaboration. Something changed and shifted in the world, and I aligned myself to it. I said, okay, I'm going to flex, and I'm going to adapt to that. And it just came into balance. And it does it over and over and over and over. I can't even tell you like how many synchronicities, how many times when I get this feeling inside, like I need to call this person. Maybe I should reach out. Boy, they look really interesting. Let me go down and research their work a little bit more. It always comes into play. And then when people approach me or something comes up and I'm like, just not feeling it, I just give myself permission to say, no, thank you. And this is how you create the life of your dreams by becoming a blank slate. Before I go into coaching sessions or I go into a group program or anything I'm going to lead, I literally tap into my ancestor wisdom, and I ask myself to be cleared, to be an open vessel. Sometimes they call it the hollow bone or the hollow reed, just to release any preconceived ideas, notions, emotions, thoughts that I have, any attachment that I have to anything. And I allow myself just to show up in that moment and to respond to what's happening right then. And that feels a little scary. And this is the way that I deal with that, with that fear. Because recently I actually stepped into one of these really large opportunities to be on a large platform and to have a lot more visibility. And when I went into that, I was understandably nervous. But what I said to myself, what I affirmed to myself before I began that process was, you already have all the knowledge and the wisdom that you need, Bevan, to do this work. Trust that when a question comes, when you need to speak something out, you will know exactly what to say, how to respond, and what to do about it. And when you go into your work in that way, when you enter into that level of self-trust, really, it's this, right? Coming into stability with yourself. Yes, you are looking out into the world, and if you're empathic, you're sensing all kinds of things. But you're also looking back at yourself. You're looking at your own reflection, and you're recognizing that you are the mystical shaman. You're able to move and navigate not only the physical realm that we live in, but the realm beyond, and any realm and any dimension. And when you do, there's an enormous, unlimited amount of knowledge. So there's like what we can get from a book, a course, a mentor, all these things. And generally speaking, when I get that from the physical reality, I receive what I call a golden nugget. It's like, oh, wow, here's this one really insightful idea that kind of shifts everything for me at that moment. I just like go, whoop, and I pivot. But when we also tap into this larger, immense, vast, infinite web of consciousness, what's possible for us is not even known. And you could either get really nervous about that, or you could get really energized about that. And I think you can tell which one I am. So thank you so much. I hope this was helpful to you as you are working on your own business as an entrepreneur. I am so, so grateful for your light out there. There are billions of us in this net, this planetary grid, serving and shining our light and resonating and spreading our message and elevating consciousness across our planet. And if you want to learn anything more about my work, you're welcome to look at the description box below. I would love to connect with you inside the 1 Million Empaths community. Please come back, like and subscribe. I do these readings several times a week, so there's different things that you can tap into as you navigate this path, and you will find your way. It's just a matter of trust and belief, and I believe in you. Thank you, my friends. Namaste.